Thank you for your patience and cooperation. Boarding will begin in a few moments.
Hello YouTube and welcome, Phriq here, and I've got a brand new video in my Let's Play Flight Simulator X FSPassengers video series. As you can see right away too, we're no longer in the default Cessna 172. That is right, I got rid of it, I sold it. We are now in the Carenado PA-28-181 Piper Archer II. Like I said, this is an aircraft by Carenado, so it is not one of the default Flight Simulator X aircraft. But looking at it right away, you can see that the detail and look of this aircraft are just leaps and bounds better than that of any of the default aircraft in Flight Simulator X. It's one of the things I love about the aircraft from Carenado, is they look good. Moving into the aircraft, you can see that the look and the layout of the cockpit are different from that of the default Cessna 172. While the look and the layout are different, the functionality is all there. Now you may be asking, why did I get this aircraft instead of a bigger, more upgraded aircraft? Well, truth be told, this is pretty much a lateral move from the Cessna 172. This aircraft is actually a little less expensive, and a lot of the features are kind of give and take. What I mean by that is, in the default Cessna 172, for example, I had an autopilot feature. Well, this aircraft does not have one, but instead it has a GPS. So I kind of gave one feature to take another. The whole reason I didn't want to spend a lot of money on a bigger, more upgraded aircraft is because if I spent all my company money on one of those planes, I would have had to fly it till basically the next millennium. Now, these videos aren't to try to make the world's greatest FSPassengers company, but instead what I am trying to do is entertainment and educational value, and I think you guys would rather see, and I would rather personally fly, a lot of different aircraft than just put all of my money into one plane. Now, without me ranting about anything else, let's talk about the flight that we are going to be doing. Right now, we are in Green Bay, Wisconsin. That's right, we're in Packertown, USA, Austin Straubel International Airport, or ICAO code of KGRB. Now, what we're going to be doing is something that I normally would not do the first time I fly a brand new aircraft, and that is going to be crossing Lake Michigan and flying into the cherry capital of the world, Cherry Capital Airport, KTVC, in Traverse City, Michigan. Now, like I said, I wouldn't normally do this in real life. However, in the game, I have done one flight with this aircraft. I did a tour flight to test it out, and we're just going to do it because why not? This aircraft was well maintained, and the flight should go all right. Plus, we are in a relatively populated area where if something were to happen, you know, we could call for an emergency landing in the lake, and hopefully someone would be able to rescue us. With all of that said, let's get into the checklists. Now, the checklist that I am using for this is not the default Carenado checklist that you get when you purchase the aircraft. When you buy a Carenado aircraft, they send you PDFs with operating information, some manuals, and checklists. Now, I'm not a big fan of their checklist, so instead I'm going to be using a third-party checklist that I have found online that I find to be a little more effective and full than that of the ones that they provide when you purchase the aircraft. As always, if you want to follow along with me, I do have a link to that checklist in the description box below. It's another reason I wanted to use this checklist so you guys could follow along. So I'm going to go ahead and open that checklist, and right away we're not going to be doing a pre-flight checklist because, like I have mentioned before, in the game you can't really simulate something out the fuel or checking the tire pressure and things like that. So we're going to assume that a pre-flight exterior inspection has been completed. So we're just going to go straight into the aircraft and start our start checklist. So avionics power switch, we want to make sure that that is off. The avionics power switch is actually right here. It is no longer in the master switch panel right there. Beacon and navigational lights, we want those on. So we see our rotating beacon light is on right there, and our nav light is actually right here. So I'm going to turn that on as well. Circuit breakers, we want to ensure those are all pushed in. Now you can't really see them, and one of the great things about some of the payware aircraft, such as the ones by Carenado or A2A simulations, is that you can remove the yoke. So I'm going to go ahead and do that so I can access everything below the yoke. Now, it's not as big of a deal in this aircraft, but in some other aircraft there are a lot of switches and gauges below the yoke, and so by removing it you can more easily access them and see them. So we would check to make sure all these circuit breakers are pushed in. Unfortunately, in this game you cannot do that, so for simulation's sake you have to assume that it is done. Now, fuel selector valve, we want that to the desired tank. Another issue I ran into this aircraft is I'm not able to change this fuel selector valve. It just says it's on all. Well, this plane doesn't have an all. It's got a left or right. But I test flew it. It does use gas from both tanks, so we're just going to go with it and assume that it's auto-adjusting the fuel selector. Another feature of this aircraft that the default Cessna 172 did not have is, right here, and that is carb heat. Now, it's listed as alt air. That is wrong. It is carb heat. Alt air is something completely different. I don't know why they did that, but anyway, it is in the closed position. It is in the off or cold position. If I were to open it, then it's in the on or hot position for the carb heat. So disregard the mislabeling of that. It is carburetor heat. Next thing we're going to do is get ready to get our passengers in, because we're at the step where we're going to put our mixture to full rich and throttle, start to crack that and start our engine. But before we do that, I'm going to get our passengers being loaded into this aircraft. So I'm going to go into FSPassengers and I'm going to start a flight. We have 2 passengers ready and willing to fly with us, and I am going to bump that up to 2. I'll quick look at them, and they're heavier individuals, but not terribly big. The nice thing about this Piper Cherokee, or I should say Piper Arhcer, is it does carry more weight than that of the default Cessna 172. The luggage capacity is 200 pounds as opposed to 120 pounds. I did look that up. So I'm going to bump my luggage up to 200 pounds. Now, like I've mentioned before, I'm not one of those people that's going to bump up my luggage all the way so I can maximize all my money. I'm doing things as realistically as possible, so I am not going to bump that up all the way. However, I am going to bump my fuel up to 100%, and you can see that the aircraft load is still below maximum. It's only at 92%, so I could easily have another passenger in there. Gonna select advanced fuel, just make sure it's 100 in both wings, which it is. Set destination, we are going to KTVC, or as you can see, the Cherry Capital Airport in Traverse City, Michigan. So I'm gonna set destination.
Set.
Thank my British lady for confirming that. I'm gonna set my type, and that is gonna be a normal flight, so I'm gonna set that as well. And I am gonna do a OK real-time load. It's going to take 2 minutes as always, and Shift E to open the door. Also, you will see that the center of gravity and speeds for this aircraft are different from that of the default Cessna 172, so that is something to be a little more cognizant about. However, everything should be good, so I'm going to go ahead and start flight. The door is closed, so I'm going to hit Shift E. And we can see that the door is on this side, and the passengers should be entering the aircraft right now. Also going to move the FSPassengers window up there, open up my ATC window and shrink it some right there. It's already saying that my avionics are on, which they're not. Anyway, I am going to put my mixture to full rich. I'm going to crack my throttle about 1/4 of an inch. Brakes are set. Propeller area, we're going to clear area, clear prop, clear prop. Just want to make sure we don't chop up our customers. Electric fuel pump, we're going to turn that on, and it is right here. Oh, shoot, excuse me, master switch. We got to turn that on first. So master switch is coming on. Fuel pump is right here. We're going to turn that on. And ignition, we can go ahead and start our aircraft. Maybe. There we go. Now, if I did need to prime it, in real life, this aircraft does have a primer. It is right here. In the simulation, you never usually have to prime the aircraft, but if I wanted to, the primer is right there. I'm going to turn off the fuel pump right now. Ignition switch has been started. Throttle, we're going to keep that at about 1,000 RPM, which you can see on the tachometer. It's pretty close to that right now. We want it between 800 and 1,200, kind of for the engine warm-up. Oil pressure, we want to make sure that that is in the green, which it is just below right now. If I were to bump up my tachometer slightly in the RPM, it would bring that up a little higher, but I'm going to keep that at about 1,000. And avionics power switch, we can go ahead and turn that on now. And as you can see, the avionics switch, like I mentioned, is right here. We do have a COM 1 with an active and a standby, a NAV 1 with an active and a standby frequency, and then COM 2 and NAV 2 that only have an active. We'll go look at the avionics panel right now. Also, the customers are in, so I'm going to turn on the seatbelt sign and shut the cabin door. Right now, let's look at the frequencies that I have in. 124.1, that is for the ATIS information. 121.9 is ground, and 118.7 is tower, all for Austin-Straubel International Airport. Now, what we want to do in NAV 2, or I guess our COM 2, we don't really have a whole lot of COM 2, so our NAVs right now, we have 109.9, which is the VOR, where am I? 109.9 is not a VOR that we need to be using right now. I need to change that to 105. Excuse me. 115.5 is the Green Bay. Oh, I guess it's down there. Excuse me. And Traverse City is 114.6, so we'll change that over here. Alright, so right now we have 114.6 in our active for NAV 1, which is the Traverse City. And our NAV 2, we have 115.5, which is the Green Bay VOR, which you can see is connected. Now, from that VOR, we are going to be flying a heading of 085 to eventually intercept the VOR range for Traverse City. So I'm going to go ahead and set that. Here is east, which is 90, so about right there should be around 085. We'll have it be a little bit more to the north. So our avionics should be set. Our transponder, we're going to turn that to standby right there. Everything else you can see is on. Next, I'm going to turn to my COM 2 and listen to the ATIS information.
Green Bay Airport information, Whiskey 2314 Zulu, wind 054 at 11, visibility greater than 20 miles, sky conditions clear, temperature 13, dew point 4, altimeter 3003, ILS runway 6 in use, landing and departing runway 6. VFR aircraft stay direction of flight. All aircraft read back hold short instructions. Advise controller on initial contact you at Whiskey.
Alright, so we got ATIS information. Whiskey, winds are 054 at 11. Altimeter, we need to change that to 30.03. So we can change that 30.03. And runway, we need to do runway 6. So next, what we are going to do is do our pre-taxi and taxi checklist. Flaps are up. Avionics and radios on set. Transponder is at standby. I kind of already did a lot of this. ATIS, we have listened to it. Altimeter is set. And when we're taxiing, we'll test our brakes, our compass, our heading indicator, our artificial horizon, and things like that. Also, what I'm going to do now is turn on my landing lights right here, because we actually don't have taxi lights, so we're going to be using our landing lights as our taxi lights in this plane. Not going to be turning on pitot heat or my instrument panel. So what I'm going to do now is request taxi, because we want to depart to the east.
Green Bay, round, Papa, Hotel, Quebec 13 with Whiskey. Request taxi to the active, departure to the east. Papa, Hotel, Quebec 13, taxi to and hold short of runway 6 using taxiway Juliet Delta. Contact tower on 118.7 when ready.
Alright, so we're going to be going to runway 6 via Juliet Delta. We'll acknowledge
Taxi,
that.
hold short runway 6 via taxiway Juliet Delta. Papa, Hotel, Quebec 13.
Now, if I pull over my Firefox, I have an airport diagram of Austin-Straubel International. We are in the terminal right here. Here is that taxiway Juliet. So what we're going to do is take taxiway Juliet right there, and turn kind of right onto taxiway Delta, which will eventually take us to runway 6. So that is where we're going to be taking off from, and that is how we are going to get there. I'm going to pull up my checklist again. Sorry that the sound cuts out every time I pull over my Firefox window. My sound in game is going to cut off. I'm also going to hit Control P, which turns off my parking brake. My parking brake lever is right there, as opposed to under the yoke in the Cessna 172. And I'm going to hit Shift P so I can have a pushback. Now, normally in these small GA aircraft, you don't need a whole lot of a pushback. You can actually just turn them around manually by getting out of the plane and like pushing on the tail. But can't do that again in game, so we're just going to simulate again that we are doing that. I'm going to hit Shift P again to stop my pushback, and then hit it one more time, Shift P, and right away hit 2, and that's going to turn our tail to the right so we can eventually be flipped around to where we're facing taxiway Juliet. Just gonna keep looking out the windows to make sure there's no other aircraft or equipment there that I am gonna smack into with my tail, and we look pretty good. Will stop us right there, so I'm gonna hit Shift P, stop that, and I'm gonna slowly start giving some throttle. And we are going to want to turn off into that taxiway right there, which you can kind of see off the left wing. So I'll start turning left, and we will go on to taxiway Juliet. One nice thing I've noticed about this aircraft that is different from the Cessna 172 is that the throttle is not nearly as touchy as it was in that default Cessna 172. So maintaining a decent taxi speed seems a lot easier in this aircraft. Also, the way it turns, it doesn't feel as abrupt as that of the Cessna 172. So taxiing just overall seems a lot more simple in this aircraft compared to that of the default Cessna 172. You can see that my turn coordinator and ball are working. The artificial horizon is lined up. Shows that we are facing roughly 021, which is correct if you look on our magnetic compass, which is right there. Now Delta is going to be right here. Gonna turn on to Delta. We're going to have to cross runway 36 and 18, which you can see right there, and you can also see that we're on Delta. Yellow on black is where you're at, so we are on taxiway Delta, excuse me. Start to slow down as always. Stop at the hold short line, just make sure there's no traffic coming, even though there should not be. There is nothing off to the left. Can't really see very well, but there is nothing off to the right landing, so we're gonna just go ahead and press on our taxi. ETC window keeps on closing every time I hit the Shift P for pushback. Not sure why that happens. Getting a little quick. Once we get to the hold short line, we're going to do a quick run-up with this engine like we did with the Cessna 172, where we're going to check the magnetos. Also, we can test the carb heat, which is something that we couldn't do in the default Cessna 172 as it did not have it. Keep going forward, turning. 99 and 99. So you can see it is drawing fuel from both tanks as well. While the throttle is not as touchy as the Cessna 172, it does take a little longer to accelerate, I've noticed in this aircraft, so something I have to kind of get used to. Alright, so we're at the hold short line. I'm going to hit the brakes, I'm going to hit control period, and we're going to do an engine run-up. The run-up in the checklist has a lot of steps to do, such as seatbelt harnesses, cabin doors, windows. We're not really going to do all that. Primer is in and locked. Fuel selector is on the proper tank, which is both, which it doesn't really have. Fuel pump is off, mixture is rich, elevator trim is set for takeoff, hopefully. I can't really see where the trim is in this aircraft. It's right here. So let's see where we're at. 13. Yeah, well, I don't know, maybe a 7 degree. Let's see what we're at. We'll do about that. 6.6. We'll hope that is good for takeoff. Annunciator panel, we can test that in this aircraft. We push that little button there and you see that the lights light up. Also, we have one annunciator on. That's just because of the oil pressure, which is right here. Again, that is because I'm pretty much at idle with this aircraft. Next, what I am going to do is, this also has an air conditioner and a heater, which are right here. Both of those are off. I'm going to keep those off right now. I'm going to bump up the throttle and we are going to turn that to almost 2,000 RPM. The tachometer is down here, so I have to kind of lower my camera a little bit. Bump it up a little more. It's almost going to be at 50%. Don't want to get too fast. We'll take it right there. I don't feel comfortable going much higher than that. So next what I'm going to do is check my magneto. So I'll turn one down and you can see a drop in the tachometer right there. I'll bump it back up and we see the tachometer rises slowly again. Next I'm going to drop it down to the right magneto, being careful not to turn it off, and we see another dip in the tachometer. We'll bring that all the way up. And what I am going to do now, once it kind of stabilizes, is turn on my carb heat, and you will see a bigger drop, usually with the RPM, which we're seeing right there, so we know our carb heat is working, and we'll put that back into the off position. So all of that stuff appears to be good. Everything else is in the green. Oil pressure, oil temp. Amps is our amp meter is working, fuel is good, and fuel pressure, we are good. So I'm going to pull back my throttle slightly. Flaps, I'm now going to set those for takeoff, which I put in 1 D10 of flaps. The flaps lever is right here. It doesn't have a switch that you do. It's not electronic flaps. Instead, you pull this lever and it automatically kind of clicks them down, which we can see right there. Pitot heat, I'm not going to have it on. Heading indicator, we're going to adjust the compass, which it pretty much looks like it is on what the compass is indicating. And transponder, we'll turn that to alt, which is right there. And we're still squawking 1200, so we're going to keep it right there, and we are going to turn to tower and request takeoff.
Green Bay Tower, Papa Hotel, Quebec 13 at runway 6, ready for takeoff. East departure. Papa Hotel, Quebec 13, cleared for takeoff. Runway 6, departure to the east approved.
All right.
Green Bay Tower, Piper, November 432.
I'm going to turn off my brakes.
9 miles south, inbound ILS, runway 36.
Start taxiing in there.
Piper, November 4327 Alpha.
Hoping to
Green Bay Tower,
interrupt them.
Runway 36, altimeter 3003. Cleared for takeoff. Runway 6, Papa Hotel, Quebec 13.
All right, so that guy is cleared.
Runway 36, Piper 27 Alpha.
So they are using both runways right now, so we're going to take off before that guy lands because I don't want to have a collision with him. So we are on the active. I was about to just take off, but I'm going to pull up my takeoff checklist so you lost the sound there. I'm not going to vocalize this all. I am just going to do the takeoff. Turned on my fuel pump right there. Technically you're supposed to have it on, so I'm just gonna have that on. Speed is at about 65 knots, getting up there, 70 knots. I'm gonna start to rotate, and our trim was pretty good for takeoff, so that makes me happy. Gonna establish a climb. Got a good climb going right now. You can see it's slightly increasing. Hopefully shooting for about 700 feet a minute. Also look to make sure that we are over the runway, which we're drifting a little bit. That's because of the wind. So I'm going to turn a little to the left. Also, what I am going to do right now is bring up my flaps, and that will improve our speed and our climb drastically. And we are pretty much almost flying straight east. We're kind of on a heading that we want to be on. The radial that we need to intercept is to our left, so I'm going to bank left slightly with hopes to eventually intercept that radial. Also, we're going to have to request a transition to Class C airspace, so that'll be coming up shortly. Fly about this heading right now. Hopes to intercept this radial. Also, since the weather is clear, I'm planning on cruising at about 5,500 feet again, like I normally do when I'm heading east. So that is my plan. Look at the city of Green Bay below us.
Cessna 17 X-ray.
Right now I'm basically waiting for them to give me clearance to leave tower frequency. Pretty much flying at a heading of 060, which you can see right there, which is about what I want to keep right now until eventually we intercept that radio, which you can see it's slowly starting to drift, but that VOR is north of the airport about 5 to 7 miles, so that's why we have to go a little ways north in order to intercept it. Also in Nav1 you see we have 114.6, which is what we want to connect to the Traverse City VOR. Still got a good climb going. All engine instruments appear to be good. Oil temp looks almost a little high. I'm not sure if that's something just with this aircraft or if it's something that really is high. Shows that the red is at 245 and we're only 206, so I'm guessing we're still in the green right there. What can we see out the window?
Office Hotel Quebec
Here we go.
You are leaving my airspace. Frequency change approved.
We're going to tune to 119.4. 119.4. Get there. There we go. And we connect it to the Traverse City VOR. So what we're going to do is request Class C airspace transition, as I had mentioned.
Papa Hotel Quebec 13 is type Piper 2 miles northwest of Whiskey 26 2800. Request clearance to transition Charlie airspace. Papa Hotel Quebec 13 Green Bay approach squawk 2603.
2603. I'm going to turn that
Papa Hotel
to
Quebec
on.
13 radar contact 2 miles northwest of Whiskey 26 3000. Cleared to Charlie airspace. Maintain no navigation.
Alright, so we're going to maintain on navigation, acknowledge radar contact.
Charlie airspace. Papa
Drifting
Hotel
to the left
Quebec
a little.
13.
We have a little bit of a weight imbalance, so the plane does want to drift a little bit on its own, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Whoops. Another thing, you can't click the OBS on this one. It brings up an actual gauge where then you could click it. But however, if you use your mouse wheel, you can see how it kind of scrolls, which is kind of a nice feature. So I'm going to do that, and we need to fly almost, as it's showing, a 085 heading. So I'm going to start turning to the right some. And we're pretty much getting there. I'm going to start to level out. Right there. This aircraft banks pretty nicely. Getting a little slow on my airspeed. I don't want to stall, even though I got plenty of airspeed left before I stall. Almost to 4,000 feet, so we have another 1,500 feet roughly to go. And then we will start the level off at 5,500 for our cruise to Traverse City, Michigan. I was going to try to look at City of Green Bay. Let's look out our window. See if we can see any cool features. I'm not sure where Lambeau Field is in relation to the rest of the city. Maybe it's down there somewhere. Never been to Green Bay. I kind of have wanted to go to Lambeau Field just to say that I've gone there, and we're drifting. Holy cow, I'm going to have to really watch what this aircraft is doing. It's one of the downsides to not having an autopilot. Now I can't set a heading hold where I can not worry about the aircraft drifting or anything like that. Also, it is pretty hazy out. It's hard to see the ground below us, so I'm doing a lot of my flying based off the instruments. Alright, we are at 4,400 roughly, so 1,100 feet to go in our climb. Still trying to maintain 80 knots roughly. Also, what I can do is I can lean back our mixture some, and that should give us a little extra power, which you would have noticed in the tachometer down there. You can see how I have it leaned back slightly. Pitot heat, we do not need that on. We're drifting to the left a little bit again. Passenger must be on my side. Instrument panel lighting is off. We're going to keep that off.
Contact Green Bay approach on 120.2. 120.2, Beachwood 1 Juliet. Green Bay approach, small, November 6608, Yankee with you, 5,000. Small, November 6.
While we're climbing, I can tell you a little bit about this aircraft. So, I originally bought that default Cessna 172. It was $243,000, and I sold it for $210,000. So, $30,000 less than what I bought it for. That is alright. I made on that aircraft in 17 flights $110,000, so I at least kind of made up what I had sold it for. The expenses were only $14,000, so there was a positive profit margin on that aircraft. Now, realistically, like I said, I would have not sold it this quick. I would have got my money's worth out of that aircraft. But I do want to fly a bunch of different aircraft. So anyway, I bought this one. I found a good deal on it. It does have more hours. It has 2,213 hours, or it did when I purchased it. And I bought it for $145,000. So it is significantly, it was almost $100,000 cheaper than the brand new Cessna 172 that I had purchased, because that one was new when I had purchased it. Now, I had looked at all the variations of the Arhcer 2, because they have different paint schemes, and then in the game it lists different prices for all of them. And I looked at all of them, and this aircraft was the one that was at the price point I kind of wanted. I was hoping to find something between $150,000 and $175,000. So at $145,000, it was good. Also, the game suggests whether the former owner maintained the aircraft well, or if he was not known well for maintenance, or if they're just unaware. And this former owner of this aircraft was known for maintaining his aircraft very well. Also, it was at 100% when I purchased it. I did not have to put in any maintenance or anything like that. So the way I see it is I got a pretty good steal. Oh. And I don't know where they are. Right there. Also, I blew through my altitude that I was going through. That is pilotage 101, that you need to pay attention what you are doing. And as you can see, I completely blew through the altitude that I was hoping to get. That is a complete fail on my book, or on my part. and I apologize for that because that is not showing good piloting skills. So I am going to start to descend slightly. Also, that's going to increase our airspeed, which is good. Ranting too much about this aircraft and the good deal that I got on it that I completely forgot that I was flying a plane. I had an altitude to maintain. I'm going to double check our fuel. 94% on both, so we are still dropping on both. That is what we want. Alright, we're pretty much getting to where we want to be. I'm slowing down my throttle. We're at about 75% right now. Lift up the nose and start to trim for level flight. Right there. 5,500 is what we're shooting for. And we're still slowing down a little. There we go. And we are pretty much now getting into straight and level flight. Airspeed, we're at 104 knots. I'm actually going to give it a little more power. Not sure exactly what it's set at. 85%. We're going to maybe keep it there. Start to level out. Give it a little more power to climb now. Once I get it relatively level, what I'm going to do then is pull over Sky Vector just so you can see where we were and where we are flying to. Pretty much got the aircraft level. I'm going to bump up the power a little more just to gain my 150 feet that I dropped. Bad piloting right now.
Roger, altimeter 3001.
I haven't had to worry about manually getting my aircraft straight and level lately. I've always been flying with autopilot, so it's a switch going back to having to manually level out. Not bad practice though. It's something I probably should work on more than I have been. There we go. Alright, we are pretty much straight and level. We're a few feet low, but it's going to start to settle out, and then we will see where we are at. With that, I am still flying pretty much east, which is where we want to be going, and I'm going to quick pull over Sky Vector so you can see where we were and where we are going. So, as you've seen before, this is Sky Vector. I'll zoom out a little bit. And right here is Green Bay. So if you remember, we came pretty much straight south from Houghton, Michigan, and landed at Atraubel International Airport, which is right here, just to the west of Green Bay, Wisconsin. Basically, what we are doing is almost flying a direct east heading. Here, if I zoom in, you can see the Green Bay VOR, which is right there, and there's that 085 radial that I want to be on, which will eventually take me straight to the Traverse City VOR, which is just south of Traverse City. And then I can land at the Cherry Capital Airport, which is right there. So that is the plan. That is what I'm hoping to do. And it's a relatively short flight. It's only about 100 nautical miles, so it definitely should not be a bad flight. Unfortunately, a lot of it will be over water. As you can see, we passed over the bay right there, which Green Bay is on. We have a little peninsula of land that we are crossing. I don't know what they said.
Green Bay, approach. Didn't copy that. Please repeat for Papa Hotel, Quebec 13. Papa Hotel, Quebec 13. You're leaving my airspace. Radar service terminated. Squawk 1200. Frequency change approved. Squawk 1200. Frequency change approved. Papa Hotel, Quebec 13. departure, November 5005.
Alright, so basically, I keep on past 0. Basically what we did is we transitioned through a Class C airspace. We can see that again on Sky Vector. If I bring that over, we'll see that this is a Class C airspace, which is what we cruised over. So now that we're out of the Green Bay area, we're past the Class C airspace. We're going to be tuning to Minneapolis Center, which we'll do our flight following. And I'm not sure if we'll connect to a different center once we get closer to Traverse City, or if they will have control over us the entire time. But what I am going to do is I am going to tune to Minneapolis Center on off course too. It's going to take some getting used to. Where am I? I want to go to 125.55. There we go. We'll put that to the active. Pulling back my throttle, we're climbing a little in altitude. And I'm going to request a flight following from Minneapolis Center.
Papa Hotel, Quebec 13 is type Hyper 6 miles south of Whiskey, India 28. Request flight following. Papa Hotel, Quebec 13, Minneapolis Center, squawk 7436.
74.
142, traffic at 5 o'clock, 4 miles at flight level 261, Boeing MD-80. Report them. Papa Hotel, Quebec 13, radar contact 6 miles south of Whiskey, India 28, 5,600, altimeter 3004.
004. Look at it right here.
Traffic is 12 o'clock, 4 miles at flight level 281, Bombardier CR 700. Report them in sight.
Acknowledge that.
Papa Hotel, Quebec 13.
So we have our flight following. We are getting back to the altitude that we want to be at. I've been doing too much talking where I haven't been working on my piloting skills. It's hard to see if we're climbing or not, or descending or on course though when you have a Mozilla Firefox window in front of you. Anyway, as you can see, we are now basically entering to cross over Lake Michigan, where we are not going to see anything but water for roughly the next 60-some miles, which is going to be a long time over water. What I am going to do is we're at a good cruising altitude. I'm going to turn off my seatbelt sign.
You may now take off your seatbelt.
And I am going to just have us cruise to Michigan, over Lake Michigan, and I will bring you back if anything happens with this flight, and I'll see you guys in a little bit. Hello guys, I am back. As you can see, we are still pretty much cruising straight and level at 5,500 feet. We are on the radial that we need to be on to intercept Traverse City's VOR, and we're flying at about 105 knots, so everything is looking good. Now what I wanted to show you is if you come and look at our GPS, we are pretty much directly over the center of Lake Michigan. And it's kind of an eerie feeling because if I look out the front window, I don't see a whole lot. You can maybe vaguely see the land off into the distance. If I turn to the north, where I'm looking north, it's just a complete blue screen. Turn to the south, you can't really see much either. Vaguely off into the distance, you can see the shore where we came from. And if I make it so we look to the south, again, you cannot see anything. We are basically staring at nothing but water. It's kind of like we're flying over the ocean in a small general aviation aircraft, although that is not the case since there is land relatively close by, but we are definitely not in glide distance to it. Basically, we're about 30 miles from land in all directions, which is kind of an eerie feeling. So if something were to happen, we would have basically the amount of time it takes us to glide into the water to transmit our location and radio for help so that we could be rescued. Because again, the water in Lake Michigan is going to be pretty cold. I know that it does not get terribly warm. So That's something that is kind of an eerie feeling about flying over Lake Michigan in one of these small single-engine GA aircraft. I'd feel a lot more comfortable if I had another engine as backup, or redundancy, I should say. But that's not the case, and that's alright. People do this flight a lot. I know there's a lot of pilots who will not fly over large bodies of water in a single general aviation aircraft, and some do it. So, you know, it really is up to the pilot's discretion. Like I said, flying over Lake Superior in real life, I would not be necessarily comfortable with that. As I indicated in my video 2 videos ago when I went from Duluth to Houghton, I would not feel comfortable flying over that lake. However, Lake Michigan is a lot more populated around it. I'd feel a little more comfortable doing this flight, considering that there is a lot more population along the coast. Green Bay is relatively close where they could send out a rescue helicopter or something like that. There are a lot of ferries that go between Lake Michigan from Michigan to Wisconsin, and a lot of other boat traffic, so I'd feel a little more comfortable crossing Lake Michigan. But nonetheless, it is still pretty eerie of a feeling. As you can see, we're about 100 feet dipped below our altitude. I'll give it a little power to increase that. And also I'm turning slightly again, deviating, but we are getting closer to that Traverse City VOR where it is starting to deviate quicker. Coming over to my DME, we can see that we are actually only 41 miles away, or 47 miles away from that Traverse City VOR, which is just to the south of Traverse City and Cherry Capital Airport. So we are getting close. I'm going to cut the video again, and I will probably bring you back when we are about 25 miles out, and then that way you can see the final approach into Traverse City and the landing. So I will see you guys shortly. Alright, YouTube, we are back. We got to report some traffic in sight. Also, I'm turning on my seatbelt sign, slightly pulling back my throttle because we are 24 miles out, and I eventually want to get us ready to land. Looking at our GPS, you can see Traverse City is right over here, and so that is where we are heading. There are 2 major runways there. There is runway 3618 or runway 1028. So we got to find out which one we're going to be landing at. So right now, what I am going to do is cancel my flight following.
Center, Papa Hotel, Quebec 13, cancel flight following. Papa Hotel, Quebec 13, Minneapolis Center, cancellation received. Squawk 1200, frequency change approved.
1200. And what I'm going to do is open my nearest airport list. Actually, I'm going to get my frequency set. So I need to tune to tower, which is going to be 124.2. 124.2. Also down in COM2, what I'm going to do is tune to Addons, which is 119.175. I'm going to quick tune to that and listen.
Traverse City, airport information, Charlie, 0019 Zulu. Wind 296 at 16 at 1 stability greater than 20 miles. Sky condition, no clouds below 20,000. Temperature 82.2. Altimeter 3000. ILS. Runway 28 in use. Landing and departing runway 28. VFR aircraft say direction of flight. All aircraft read back hold short instructions. Advise controller on initial contact. You have Charlie. Traverse City, airport information, Charlie. 0.
Alright, so we got their information, Charlie. Winds are 296 at 16. Altimeter is 3000, and I'm just going to confirm that I got that set right about there. And we're going to be doing runway 28, so we're going to be basically turning around and flying into the wind. I got to start my descent a little more. 20 nautical miles out, I'm pulling back on the throttle. Seatbelt sign is on. It should see Traverse City roughly out here. Look at my, it's going to be a little more straight out here. Next, what I'm going to do is call that airport.
tower on 124.2, Piper 31 Lima.
If I can find them in here. Airport's further, Cherry Capital, that is what I want. Tower is 124.2, which I have. So I'm going to put that in there, and also I'll tune in the ground frequency, which is 121.8.
City Tower, Piper November 7731 Lima is 8 miles west inbound visual. Runway 10 approach.
Piper November 7731 Lima, Traverse City Tower, make straight in, runway 10, altimeter 3000.
Alright,
Straight in, runway 10,
once they stop talking, I'm hoping to talk with them. Elevation at this airport is around 600 feet, so I want to get to about 1,600 feet. So I'm going to keep descending as I am right now. I'm going to request full stop landing.
Papa Hotel, Quebec 13 is 19 miles southwest with Charlie to land.
Papa Hotel, Quebec 13, Traverse City Tower, make left downwind, runway 28, altimeter 3000.
Alright, so we got our pattern instructions. We're going to make a left downwind, which means we're doing left-hand turns, and we're going to enter into the downwind of that airport, and eventually go into runway 28. So we're going to be landing into the west, or facing the west, which is pretty much into the wind. The wind is 296 out of 16, so a little more north, a little bit of a north crosswind, but not very much.
Altimeter 3000.
Fly right downwind, runway 28.
Keep looking around. It's getting dark, so I'm not sure exactly where this airport is. I've never flown here before. Nice to have the GPS, actually. Should be around this area, but still not sure where it is. It's showing that we're 15 nautical miles away from that airport right now. Also, what I'll quick do is bring over my airport diagram of that Traverse City Airport. So you can see we're going to be landing on runway 28, which is here. So we're going to be entering a left downwind, excuse me. So we'll be coming in at a 45-degree angle here, entering the downwind about halfway. And then we'll eventually turn left onto the base and left onto the final. And we're going to land on runway 28, hoping to exit at around... where's the terminal? So we'll try to exit on Gulf 1, which will take us to the terminal, where we will drop off our passengers. We're still in this descent. We're at about 3,400 feet right now, which is fine. We still want to continue to descend until we get to about 1,600 feet for when we enter the pattern. Still trying to look around for that airport, and I am not seeing it anywhere right now, unless that's the airport right there. But I don't think we should KTVC, it should be off our right wing. We might have it right up there. That might be it over there. Off our left wing, excuse me.
93, exit runway when able.
Hopefully that's it, because I really don't know where I'm going, because I have never flown here. I am simply navigating VFR, using the VOR to help me get relatively in the direction of that airport. We're still 13 miles away from that VOR. If I bring up Sky Vector, which I will do quick, you can see that that VOR is actually south of the airport. So we're going to be going north of it. So I'm not going to fly directly to it. Right now we're 10 miles out. We're probably around right here. So the airport's going to be up here. We're probably going to turn at a little bit of a heading and or do a little heading change and maybe fly it around 070 or so. Oh, we're flying at 060. It's pretty close. The airport might be that flashing light, or that's an aircraft coming in. Anyway, that's my intentions. Hopefully I'm not confusing you guys too much. I'm going to pull up my airport diagram again, so sorry that the sound cuts out. Beautiful sunset right now. Passengers are having their seatbelts on. Looks nice out there. That's quite a beautiful view. Nice evening approach into Traverse City, Michigan. Everybody wants to go to the Cherry Festival. I know Traverse City, Michigan has a Cherry Festival. I believe it's in May, though. being the cherry capital of the world. I have actually been to Traverse City. I've just never flown into it. I've always drove there. I have a relative who lives out there, so we go and visit her every once in a while. It's a lovely place. In the summer, it is extremely tourist populated. Where in the winter the population drops pretty dramatically, actually, because there's not a whole lot of tourism there in the winter. But in the summer, it is a prime tourist spot. They have an air show. Last time I was there was an air show with the Blue Angels, which was pretty fun to watch. You can see that Cherokee coming in for a landing, so we would have to assume, we'll put on our binoculars and assume that the airport is right there. I'm actually not going to get too much lower right now. I'm going to try to level off slightly at around 2,000 feet until we get a little closer to that airport. Also, I know Traverse City, as you guys know through all my videos, I talk about hockey a lot. They do have basically the amateur professional hockey games up there. So all the top draft prospects for NHL teams will basically have their games up in Traverse City, Michigan. So if you like hockey and you want to take a look at some of the top prospects for NHL teams, that is where you can watch them, is in Traverse City. I know that's in the fall. Alright, we had a little bit of a weather change. My real-world weather updates, and so sometimes you see that graphical change and a slight heading change. It's just what happens. We've pretty much stabilized at about 1,750 feet, so we're gonna stay there. We're about 100 feet higher than what we want to enter the pattern at, but I am still just trying to confirm that this is the airport here, which it definitely looks like it is. I can actually see the lights flashing there. Get a nice look at Traverse City. It is a really nice, a beautiful area. So if you've never been to Traverse City, I would recommend it. It is a beautiful city. It's off kind of a bay of Lake Michigan. There are a lot of lakes there. There's some nice forested areas and trees. Also, I know they have some sand dunes up there, which I've never been to, but I know it's a pretty popular spot for ATV riding and motorcycle riding and things like that, if you're into that. Right there, I'm assuming that is runway 10, which is flashing. Ah, no, we can see the runway now. There's runway 10, and there's runway 36, so we are in our right location. What I'm going to do is pull back my throttle. I want to start to bleed off some speed without losing altitude. So what I'm going to do is try to maintain my altitude, pulling back the throttle, and killing some of my speed right now. Slow us down, because we're going to want to enter that traffic pattern. I'm going to aim for maybe 80 knots. So as you can see, I'm slowly pulling back my throttle, which is slowing my aircraft down. You actually don't use your throttle to slow your aircraft down. It's more throttle is for descents and climbs, and your trim is for your airspeed. You trim for your airspeed. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling back on the yoke and giving it some nose-up trim, which is trimming it to a slower airspeed while maintaining my altitude, which you can see of about 1,700 feet. You can see that we're getting close to that 80 knot mark, which is what I'm hoping to enter the pattern at. Have a Mooney Bravo landing right there. They are landing on runway 28, which is the runway which we are going to be utilizing. We're coming off a little south of that airport, which is fine because eventually I'm going to turn to the north and enter the pattern at a 45-degree angle, making left traffic, so it's going to be left turns in the downwind. Just make sure there are no other aircraft who are possibly thinking of coming in IFR into runway 36 or 10. This is a beautiful flight right now. once again, I know I gave my rant about general aviation aircraft, but this is another thing. I mean, with the sunset and the city lights below, you know, flying at about 1,000 feet above the city, it's a beautiful view. Anyway, I'm gonna pull back my throttle a little bit more, and I am starting to turn towards that airport.
Contact ground on 121.
And our GPS is confirming that it is the right airport. But also, using my VOR, I can see that the VOR is about 3 miles south of me,
Cessna 03 Sierra.
which kind of lines up with the aeronautical charts as well.
121.
We're at about 1,600 feet, so we're going to try to maintain that right there. Now, I'm going to slow down a little more, trying to maintain 1,600 feet, and we are going to continue entering at this heading right now, which is about a 45-degree angle where we'll be entering that downwind. See if I can't slow down just a little more. Pull back my throttle slightly again. Now we're getting established at about 80 knots, which is what I want. A little too low on the throttle, give it a little more power. And that's looking good. We are at 80 knots. And we're starting to level off. We're a little low, we're about 50 feet low, but I will accept that. And we will start eventually, once we get a little closer, to turn into our downwind portion of this approach, or of our traffic pattern, downwind. You can see the airport right there. You can see the runway. I'm going to start turning into the downwind, which I am making right now. We're basically going to be flying straight east, which is going to be parallel to that runway 28. So we can see we have a heading of east right now. I'm going to pull back my throttle. I'm starting to climb some. And now we're going to wait for the beam line, which is about right there. And that's where we're going to put in our first detent of flaps. So descending a little too much, give it a little more power. Alright, so we're at our beam point, so I'm going to hit in my first detent of flaps. I'm going to lose a little more speed, and I'm going to acknowledge my landing clearance.
Papa Hotel, Quebec 13.
Now once the end of the airport gets to about the 3/4 mark between our left wing and our elevator, that is when we are going to plan to turn into our base leg of the pattern. As you can see, I'm slowly descending slightly, but not a whole lot. I'm not really entering a final approach yet, but I am losing some speed because I do have my first detent of flaps in. You can see that this does have ILS lighting right there for runway 28, but we are not tuned to the ILS. We're going to visually do this all. Trying to see if there's PAPI lights or VASI lights, but I'm not seeing any. Alright, so we're pretty much at that point, so I'm going to start turning to the north. Making sure not to, I'm going to give it a little more power. I don't want to descend any more than I have. Also, I'm going to turn on my instrument panel lighting, which you can't really see. Whoa, that was a little drastic of a turn. Maybe our dome lighting here will help us see a little better. Oh, I hate that. That's like blood red. No. Now I gotta turn into our final. Also, if you didn't hear, I put in another detent of flaps. There we go. We're coming in pretty high. And I am not seeing any VASI or PAPI lighting, so we're going to be doing this the all-natural way. I'm really pulling back on the throttle. I'm a little high. Also, I need to slow down some more. On our final approach right now, I'm going to put in my final detent of flaps. Seatbelt sign is on. Give it a little more power. And we're drifting off to the south a little bit. Like I said, we do have a slight north crosswind, but it's not too much. Shouldn't be too bad of a landing. Sure wish I could see my instrument panel more, though. Holy cow. I know with the FSX, you run into this issue where you can't quite see your instrument panel because it's at that sunset time, so the instrument lighting in-game doesn't really turn on yet, and it's too dark by the natural sunlight to see your instrument panel, and I think that's kind of what we're running into right now. Off to the right a little, but we should start to even out with the runway. Sure wish it had some visual glide slope indicators, but it doesn't. But that is alright. We are coming in nicely, it looks like. Start to slow down a little more. Pull back on the throttle. Don't want to slow down too much. A little more power, a little more power. There we go. There we go, and we are down nicely. Put our nose down, put up my flaps,
turn next taxiway.
and it looks like that might be that Gulf 1 taxiway that we want to go on. Or that's actually hotel. So we are gonna turn on to hotel, which is not marked on my diagram here. So this airport may have been updated recently.
Contact ground on 121.8.
Alright, so we're going to acknowledge our handoff. We're going to go to 121.8, so I'm going to acknowledge that.
1.8, Papa Hotel, Quebec 13.
Also, since we are landed, I'm going to pull up my checklist. Flaps, we want to make sure that those are fully up. Landing lights on, which they have been on. Transponder, we're going to turn that now to standby. And trim, we'll set that for takeoff, which wanted at about 7. Probably maybe right there. 9. Put it up a little more right there. That should be good. Also, I'm going to tune to to ground, excuse me, and request taxi to gates.
Papa Hotel, Quebec 13, taxi to the gate. Papa Hotel, Quebec 13, taxi to gate Golf 2, using taxiway Hotel Golf Echo.
Taxiway Golf,
Roger.
Hotel Golf Echo. Alright, so,
Taxiing to gate Golf 2, using taxiway Hotel Golf Echo. Papa Hotel, Quebec 13.
I'm going to quick bring over, not that, but this. I'm assuming this is now the hotel, so we're going to go on to Golf and then Echo, which maybe is this G2. Unfortunately, the taxiways must have been updated from when this game was created, so we're kind of guessing here. We can turn on progressive taxi. We should turn to the right and then left. So I'm not going to plan on using that. That's the one downside to this game, is that when taxiways and whatnot get updated, you can't use airport diagrams anymore. Turning on to the taxiway. I should have landing lights on, but I'm not seeing much. Do have a landing light on, which is kind of being used as our taxi light. See some clouds that have builded off to the west. Glad we never experienced them. Alright, that looks like it's Echo right there, so we should be turning into that, which you can see we are supposed to. Slow down some and start taxiing into taxiway Echo. And then, like always, I'm going to turn on my progressive taxi now because I have no idea where the gate markings are game. It doesn't really give gate markings, so... Excuse me. Big twin prop aircraft right there. Beechcraft probably. Beechcraft 400 or something like that. Going a little fast. Slow down. Start taxiing to the left, and hopefully it takes us to the gate soon. I have no idea where we are. So I know where we are going now, so I'm going to turn off my progressive taxi. Start to slow down. We are almost to the gate, where our passengers will get off and they have 100% satisfaction. I like that. That makes me happy. A little off to the left of the line, but whatever. Alright. We will stop right there. We'll pull back our throttle. I'm going to hit on my parking brake. I'm going to pull up my checklist again, so you're going to hear the sound cut out. Alright. So, flaps are fully retracted. Electric pump is off. Landing taxi lights, we're already done with that. That's the after landing. So we're going to go into the shutdown checklist. Parking brake is on. Avionics, we can go ahead and turn those off. Magnetos, we can check those if we wanted to, but I'm not going to check them because I do that during the run-up. Mixture, we're going to pull that to idle and or cut off, which is going to kill the engine. Ignition switch is going to come to the off position, which you can see that it is in off right now. Hobbs tachometer, this is where you would record it to see how many miles you logged in your time, but obviously we're not doing that. Chocks, tie down cover, doors secure. This shutdown checklist isn't very good because it doesn't have us like turn off our batteries, which I'm going to turn off there. Fuel pump off, landing lights, we'll turn those off. Beacon we'll keep on. Instrument panel lighting, whoa. Apparently off is on. It might have helped. I don't know what's going on with this aircraft. I have not flown it before, really, so this is kind of a new experience. Make sure this is off. I'm going to hit Shift-E to open the doors so my passengers can start getting out. And I'm just going to verify that everything is kind of set. Because, yeah, my landing checklist is not doing it very well. It's pedo heat. Yeah, apparently instrument panel lighting, when it is on, it is actually off, and when it is off, it is actually on, as you can see. So that would have been nice. The GPS, I don't know if you can turn that off. I have no idea if there is a button to turn it off. I haven't seen one, so that just kind of stays on. Maybe it just runs on batteries. Anyway, we have unboarded completely. All our passengers are off, and our plane is pretty much secure. So I'm going to go ahead and end this flight. I'm going to go into FSPassengers, end flight. Mode realistic, flight already registered. We had a nice landing. Landed at the correct airport from Austin Atraubel International in Green Bay. Our flight time was 1 hour and 10 minutes. Total time airborne, with our block of being 1 hour and 25 minutes. It was an exceptional flight. They were happy. Not making as much money with this aircraft, and I'm assuming it burns slightly more fuel than that, excuse me, Cessna 172. Company reputation is now in the 90s. That is awesome. So we have gained more company reputation, and it was overall flight results were perfect. Let's see what my bonuses were. Nice landing, perfect flight, no problems, and I landed at the correct airport. It's considered bad practice to leave landing lights on when the aircraft is on the parking ramp. Well, I don't have taxi lights, so that's why I did that. And the strobe lights must be activated when entering the runway. I forgot them. I don't have strobe lights on this aircraft, so apparently I just won't turn on my landing lights until It's gonna be either do I do no taxi light or do I do no landing light? I'm gonna get penalized either way, so I'm just gonna have to learn that I'm gonna be accepting negative 80 points for lighting penalties in this game because the aircraft doesn't have them. So I mean, that's the best I can do. Anyway, we're gonna go ahead and close that. I am still happy with that flight. I hope you enjoyed your flight from Atraubel International Airport in Green Bay, Wisconsin, crossing Lake Michigan to KTVC, or Cherry Capital Airport in Traverse City, Michigan. I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to be going for my next flight, but I will hopefully see you guys all then. Please feel free to send me any comments or questions if you do have them. I try to respond to every message and or comment that I do get. Also, if you like the videos, please subscribe so that way you can see more of my lovely videos as I make them. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and I will catch you all next time.